Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel Blue Lady Couture, and welcome back to my sewing room for another sewing vlog. I am still working on my big project that I have set myself for this year and probably many years to come, which is my decades project, where I am planning to sew my way through the decades from 1800 through to the 1910s. I have recently been working on some new Regency pieces for the very start of this adventure, some of which are the petticoats, one of which is here. I've also made a silk one, and you can go check out the full video from that, and that kind of gives you a little bit of an introduction to the kind of the Regency projects that I'm making as well. So I won't go into too much detail here of the exact ins and outs of what I'm making, but I'm just going to do a kind of a little summary for you, basically so we can crack on with the sewing, and so that these videos don't end up being really long and that I'm not repeating myself in each video. So yes, so do feel free to go and check out the previous vlogs of the petticoat making, and then I also have another vlog of the first of the gowns which I've been making to work with these petticoats, one of which was a beautiful Gothic gauzy black gown, and from there I was working on some white gauzy gowns, which are the classic iconic Regency gowns, those beautiful gauzy almost semi-sheer white gowns that were prevalent in the Regency era. So I have one of those made, and today I am working on the second one because I bought 3 fabrics for this Regency project. The black fabric, which I use for the black gown. Then my first white gown was made from a dobby or spotted striped white muslin, and then the third gown, which I'm working on today, is going to be made from this fabric. Now at the moment this fabric hasn't been pressed, it has just been pre-washed to pre-shrink it, and it's just come off the airer, so my first job will be to run the iron over this and get some of these creases out. But this is a beautiful floral embroidered, or perhaps sprigged is another term, white cotton, but again it has a kind of a stripe going through it, and it is so pretty. This was the first fabric I came across when I was kind of inspired to work on these gauzy Regency gowns, and this is kind of the sort of fabric that I've been looking for years, because it's just really hard to find decent quality historical-ish. I say historical-ish because it's very hard to get exact historically accurate fabrics these days. And to be honest, it is getting harder and harder to find. So when I found this fabric, I knew that this was going to be, one, just perfect for my Regency project, and two, that I had to buy rather a lot of it in the hopes that I can be able to offer it to my clients. Sometimes you just never know when you find a random fabric online. You don't know, or even in a shop sometimes, you don't know how long it's going to be around for. Other people could buy it, it could just go out of stock and not be replaced, and then I would be very sad that I wouldn't be able to make any more of these dresses. So I bought quite a bit of yardage to enable me to make several dresses. This first one is going to be for me as the sample piece, because sometimes you do have to have some perks with your job, don't you? And one of my perks is that I get to create the sample pieces for myself to wear and model, and then obviously I can take them with me to events and markets and things like that as well. So I've already made a Bib-Front style gown for the black gauzy dress, but it had a very distinct kind of cowl draped front on it, which enables it to show off the coloured petticoat underneath a little bit more. Then the second gown, the white gown I made, had more of a crossover bodice with an infilled insertion in the front, so obviously make it a little bit different. And then I think for this gown I am going to go back to doing another Bib-Front gown, or a drop front gown, simply because they are easier to get on and off by yourself. So that's what I'm going to use as the basic style design for this. But it's going to have a more classic gather design across the front panel, rather than the kind of the fancy cowl drape style that I made previously with the black gown. I would also like to put slightly longer sleeves if I can on this gown, because I tend to fall into a rut of just doing little short puffy sleeves on my Regency gowns, which is fine, you know, it's great. And it works really well for my pattern layouts when I'm laying out all my pattern pieces on my fabric. The short gowns just enable me to get the short sleeves just enable me to get the gowns out of a very specific piece of fabric. Now I think I do have some wiggle room to get slightly longer sleeves out of my pattern layout, but that is one of the things I want to play around with. Obviously when you make a dress you have, you know, your set yardage, 3 meters, 4 meters, whatever. But as I said, I bought a long yardage. I bought 20 meters of this fabric, which in theory, based on my workings out, should allow me to get 6 dresses made from this length of fabric, with some leftover yardage for a bit of wiggle room, which can come in handy when I'm making for clients of different sizes. You may also notice in this video that I'm going to try and keep the length of it down by not showing you necessarily every little detail within the process. I've now made several videos filming me making Regency gowns, and obviously I don't want to just keep repeating the same kind of processes every time, because that's just not interesting for you to watch. Unless you want to see that, obviously, you know, let me know in the comments down below. But yes, in the interest of trying to keep this video a little bit shorter than my videos sometimes can run to, I will probably just be showing you some highlights of the making and focusing just on a few key kind of details and I want to highlight further. If you're enjoying this video, you can give me a thumbs up by clicking the little thumbs up icon down below, and you can also leave me a comment, which really helps my channel out and encourages YouTube to push it out to more people. You can also subscribe here on YouTube if you would like to be notified when my next video goes out, or if you want to go one step further, you can subscribe to me via my website, which will sign you up to my email newsletter. But I have 3 tiers to choose from, one of which is free, and then there's 2 paid tiers above that, and they get you different perks for discounts in my website and Etsy shops, where you can purchase some of the items if you would like to have your own version of a Blue Lady Couture historical costume. As well as all that, you will also get a thank you in the credits at the end of my YouTube videos. If you want to know more, I will put a link in the description down below. Right, me waffling to you here is not going to get this gown made today, so let's crack on. So I have just discovered one small issue as I was pressing the fabric, and that is this little hole in the fabric, which is within the embroidery design. So as you can see, I've marked it with pins so I can see where it is, and yeah, it's kind of, obviously it's disappointing when you find a fault in the fabric. Now, so I don't know whether it was here originally or whether it's something that's happened during the washing process. Also, I will have to check over the rest of the fabric to see if there's anything similar. The length that I've cut for this dress, there is no other fault that I can see. It's just this one little piece. So yeah, so I just need to figure out what I'm going to do about it and how I can work with it. So obviously what I'm hoping is that I'm going to have to play around laying the pattern out and kind of see where it falls within the pattern pieces. Obviously my hope is that I can just cut around it if it falls where the kind of the bodice panels are going to be, but I've got a feeling it's quite close to kind of basically where when the fabric's on the fold, it's quite close to the fold line, so obviously right in the middle of the fabric. It's not like it's on the edge or something like that. And yeah, and it's 43 inches from one end. Yeah, annoyingly, it's right in the place where I don't want it to be, which is, you know, that's typical, that's sod's law. Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of the nature of delicate fabrics like this. And I mean, you've only got to read Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey, where they talk about the delicacy of muslins. There's a discussion between Mrs. Allen, Catherine, and Mr. Tilney, because obviously he understands muslins. Yeah, there's a fabulous scene where they discuss the cost for lengths of muslin for gowns, the quality of muslins and whether they will wash well. And of course the whole conversation starts because Mr. Tilney brushes past Mrs. Allen in the ballroom, and a pin tears a hole, because obviously it's very common to pin your gown as much as use conventional button fastenings or anything like that. So a pin tears a hole in her muslin gown. So yeah, so it's just a fact of working with delicate fabrics like this. I mean, no different to if like a modern chiffon today, or a lace fabric for a bridal gown or something like that. They're delicate fabrics. They can tear, and sometimes it doesn't always take much to tear them, especially when they've got embroidery details on them, because the stitching of the embroideries can often put strain on the fabric. Now, I'm not to say that this is a bad fabric, by any stretch of the imagination. I think it is what it is, and I think it's just one of those things to bear in mind if you're working with, or making, or purchasing a muslin gown like this. You are going to have to be a little bit more gentle with them. So anyway, back to the job in hand. And figuring out how this is going to work. Luckily, because it is actually on where the embroidery is, can probably just put a little patch on the back to stabilise it, so it wouldn't get any worse. So what I'm thinking is, where it's sitting is, if I can incorporate into one of the skirt panels, potentially the back skirt panel, it's either going to sit very high up in the back panel and be under where it's really tightly gathered in the very back of the gown, or if I flip the panel the other way, it's potentially going to be in the hem turn-ups, which again is going to offer it a little bit of stability in that if it's in whether the fabric folds over itself as part of the hem, is going to have that extra backing of the fold of the fabric behind it. Sometimes you just have to make do with situations like this. Okay, so it is just coming up to lunchtime, and this is progress so far this morning. As you can see, the bodice panels are together. I have pressed around the front neckline. That will need to be hand stitched, so that'll be a job for after lunch. And then I need to finish off the front opening. And as before with my black drop front gown, I'm going to put some darts in under the bust just to take in some of this excess. Then obviously I've got the sleeves to go on, finish off, and then the skirts to attach, and the bib front panel as well. Am I going to get that done this afternoon? Probably not. I think it is safe to say that a Regency gown is not necessarily a one-day project, especially if you've got hand sewing, things like that to do. Though I think this is going to look very pretty once it's done with this embroidered fabric. It is not the most fun fabric to work with. My sewing machine hates it. Well, it doesn't hate it, but it needs a bit of persuasion to go over some of the thicker embroidered sort of floral details, because it's quite bulky under those. So yes, my sewing machine is enjoying that. I have also come across another slight issue with the fabric that I hadn't clocked prior to cutting out. But down the selvage edges, there's quite a wide blank space before the embroidery starts. But then I've noticed on one side, so this is on both sides of the fabric, but on one side, the edge of the embroidery has these marker embroidered bits on it. I think it's basically just marking where the repeat is on each section. So these little H's, depending on where you look at it, yeah, these little embroidered bits are every 2.5 inches, right the way up one side of the edge of the fabric, and it's obviously not on the other side. Yeah, so obviously when I've cut the skirt panels out, it's going to be right up one side of the skirt panels, and I'm just trying to figure out, do I just roll with it? Because obviously if I cut the selvage back on each of the skirt panels, I'm essentially losing that much off the side of each panel, and that's not really ideal. I'll have to have a look and do some measuring and see if I can afford to lose that. It's obviously quite a bit of gathering to go into the underbust line, so I might get away with it, because again, I don't think it's something that I can necessarily like unpick either, because that's just a job that nobody wants, and it also may end up damaging the fabric, so that is probably not going to be an option. So yeah, it may be that I just have to live with it, and yeah, see how I feel when I get that far. But for now, we're carrying on with the bodice. So yeah, so as I say, that's where I'm up to. It's coming up to lunchtime, so I'm going to stop for a break now, have something to eat, and I shall be back at it in a little bit. So I'm just going to put together the bib front for the bodice. So this is the panel for that. So I'm going to put it in place, and then I've got some drawstrings to gather it up to the fullness that I want. Something a little bit like that. I'm not too worried about the gathering right at the end of it at the moment, because that's going to obviously attach onto the skirt panel, and also I can readjust that when I get to that stage, but at the moment it's the top line that I want to get right, because what I'm going to do once I've got the gathering in place, I'm going to finish the edge off by attaching a narrow band, then folding it over, and then that will need to be hand stitched down on the inside, and then I'll follow the hand stitching down the sides of the panel as well, just so that the machine stitching doesn't show on the outside of the gown. So yeah, so I'm just easing out the gathering so it's sitting and looking nice. Obviously, because it's vertical stripes as well, we want to try and make sure the stripes aren't twisted sort of one way or the other too much. Certainly want the this centre front stripe to sit in the centre front if I can. It's the next day, or the next session, that I'm working on this gown. And yeah, I'll be honest, I can't actually remember the last thing that I filmed because it was a week ago, because that is how I am rolling with this project at the moment. Once a week is my day that I set aside to sew on these projects, and making sure I'm working towards that goal that I set myself at the beginning of year to make sure I am creating new pieces alongside obviously working on customer orders and customer projects. Because if I don't make the time to do these kind of projects, then they don't happen and things grow stale. So yes, so at the moment it's once a week that I am managing to do that. So you have to forgive me, I can't remember what I did last week. So yeah, I haven't got a clue what the last thing I filmed was without going and turning this off and going and checking. Should have probably done that before I started filming, but there we go. However, as you can see, it has sat on the mannequin for the week, and at the state that I left it, which is that the bodice is pretty much done. The Bib-Front is has been created, and I think that was probably the last thing I was doing, was finishing off the Bib-Front, and I think I was gathering up the drawstrings underneath. So my next project is to, or next part of the project is to work on the skirt panels. Because at the moment this front bodice piece is not attached to anything, it's just pinned in place, because this has got to be mounted to the front skirt panels, which will obviously create the Bib-Front to enable me to get it on and off. So the skirt panel lengths are here, or obviously already cut out, so they just need putting together. However, I have discovered, I think this is perhaps this is now the second issue that I found with this fabric, which again, it's not a bad thing. I think the first issue I showed you at the beginning of this video was I found a teeny tiny little hole, which is in one of these skirt panels. It should have some pins in it somewhere. But it's such a small hole that when you're looking at, a huge length of fabric, it's easy to miss until you're obviously working on the pattern and it's suddenly laid out there in front of you. And there it is, right in the middle of the fabric where you don't want it. But anyway, like I say, I'm going to work with it and hopefully it won't cause too many problems. Now, the second issue that I had this fabric, and again, I do think I mentioned this, the pattern is symmetrical on both sides, but on one edge of the selvage, it has these, I think they're repeat marks from the embroidery process, which isn't ideal, but I can live with it, and it's obviously just something I'll have to bear in mind in the future. But the other issue really that has kind of come to my attention since I cut the fabric out is this huge swathe of white. Now, because in an ideal world, I want to really match the pattern stripes up as they go around the skirt, so it doesn't look odd. So again, yes, it is something I should have paid more attention to at the time when I was cutting out, but I was excited to get started on this project, use this fabric, and yeah, I should have just paid a little bit more attention to, which for me is really bad because obviously, I love stripes and working with stripes. So for me to not pay attention to this, yeah, I should have paid more attention to it. There's no other way around it. And it is obviously why I'm doing a mock-up or a sample gown for myself first, is that obviously going forward, I know this is something that I definitely have to pay attention to when working with this fabric for clients. So when I've cut the front piece out here using my usual formula for making a Regency gown for myself, so the width of the front panel on the fold is here, and this is a raw edge where I've cut the fabric to create the panel size that I need, and then the other panel is cut from the full width of the fabric. So again, the fold is here, and this is the selvage edges here. So yeah, so essentially that means I get to use that full width of the fabric across one of the panels, and it's something that is very prevalent in Regency costumes and other clothing throughout history. It's the least wasteful way of using fabric is to make use of that full selvage. And obviously traditionally fabric would have been woven a lot narrower than what we weave it today. So yeah, so you use the full width of the fabric to create the least waste. But as you can see, there is this huge wide blank stripe essentially on one side, and on the other side this huge great blank white stripe has these marker pieces in the embroidery. Yeah, so ideally what I need to do is essentially cut off this wide edge and obviously move this where the seam line will be back a fraction, and then ideally obviously I want that to match with this so that kind of the seam matches up when it's joined together. Had I thought about this at the time I was cutting it out, which I should have done, I would have, well actually no, thinking about it, I was going to say I'd have added more width onto this panel because I'm losing width off this panel. I could have obviously allowed a full extra of the stripe onto this panel, which would, yeah, that would have been the way to do it. Obviously, because I haven't done that, I need to match up this stripe here with this stripe here, which means I'm essentially going to be losing this amount of fabric off each side of the panel, which I think on this sample piece for myself, it will be fine. And luckily I'm of a size that I can probably get away with losing that amount. There should still be, there's a good amount of width in this fabric, that it's not the end of the world, but it just means that the skirts won't be quite as wide as they are on the other two gowns that I've made as part of this collection. But I think that's going to be the best solution to match the pattern rather than trying to, because at first I was like, well, I'll just have this a wider stripe in the back of the skirt panel, it will be it'll be okay. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no, that's going to look not going to look good in photographs or when I'm wearing it, and is essentially also going to make my work look not as good as it should, because it's the sort of thing people on the internet will pull you up for. So yeah, so I'm going to have to suck it up on this occasion and cut the excess off so I can match that panel up there. I'm hoping it makes some kind of sense to you. And yes, I repeat again going forward that if I'm making these for clients, then obviously I will pay a lot more attention to obviously the widths and the pattern matching. And I think it's one of those, because it's a wider pattern than the other two fabrics, and the other two fabrics, the fabric design does go selvage to selvage, so I'm not losing anything off the edge, or if I did need to match it up, it's not as much to lose off each edge. But it also, because it's a much finer stripe on the other fabrics, you can get away with the pattern strap matching not being so perfect, because this is such a wide pattern and such a light striped pattern. It has to match, really, I think. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things of a few different factors have come together that requires a little bit more thinking about with regards to this fabric. But as I say, that's why I'm doing the sample piece, so I know this and can address that in the future. Right, that's enough of me waffling about stripes and pattern matching. I'm sure you're bored of that already. I'm going to crack on and yeah, cut these panels, or recut this panel, and get them matched up and get the seams together, and then we can work out attaching it to the bodice. So the skirt panels are now gathered up and attached to the waistband, ready to be finished off with binding on the inside. That's my usual technique to finish off the inside edge, as I've done on my other previous gowns. That wide piece of plain offcut that I took off the skirts, I'm going to use to create the binding edge, because waste not, want not. So I figured out how I can use a blind hem stitch to machine sew the second pleat in these dresses, so that obviously the machine stitching shows on the outside, and obviously with a blind hem stitch all you see is the tiny little stitches just come through where the blind hem stitch just catches the hem up, and that just saves a lot of time hand sewing it, which then obviously frees up time for me to hand sew the main hem of the dress, which I don't mind doing. I'm perfectly happy to do that, but to have to go around the hem twice by hand, yeah, that just takes so much time, and obviously when I'm making things and I have to think about them in terms of hours spent that obviously I have to charge my customers for, you know, I have to figure out ways of where can I use machine sewing to save time and obviously essentially costs that don't get passed on to my customers, and where do I still need to take the time to do the hand finishing such as on the hem. I mean, I probably don't need to hand finish the hem. Not all my customers are probably that bothered about having hand finished hems for the most part, but for me it's just one of those finishing touches that I like to do. It just adds that, you know, that additional level to the garments that I make. But yeah, where I can, I'm still going to use machine stitching, you know, where I can, where it's not going to be seen too much, just because it makes sense from a, you know, a financial point of view. And that is the last bit of machine stitching to do on this dress. It is just the hand finishing now. The hem, the opening on the skirt panels, and I just need to finish off the sleeve hem because I forgot to do that when I was hand finishing it previously on the bodice, and then I have the buttonhole loops to put on for the bib front. Okay, so here is your last look at dress number 3 before I do the final reveal, and she's almost done. The last little bits finishing off that I need to do by hand, but I thought I'd just end the video or do the outro of the video here, just because it's come up to the end of the day, and yeah, got to crack on. So yes, I want to film this before I have to go and do other things. And just have a quick talk over how it's gone. I will say, out of all of the 3 dresses, I think this one has actually ended up being the most challenging, which is a little bit frustrating, and I think that mostly comes down to this particular fabric. This is the first of the gauzy fabrics that I actually came across, and obviously when I saw it, it got me really excited, and kind of spurred me on to, you know, start this project. So the fact that it's ended up being the more challenging one to work with is, yeah, it is a little bit frustrating. Although in the end, I think it has turned out okay, and I'm looking forward to doing a full try on to see, you know, how it looks overall. Obviously, some of the issues that I encountered with the fabric are things that I can rectify when I make future versions of this dress. So things like the width of the fabric and that extra wide white stripe down the edge. Obviously, I can make sure I put extra allowances in the other panel on the skirt to accommodate that. I think where I have seamed it down the back is okay. Overall, once it's, you know, actually folds and pleats of the skirt are falling down the back, I mean, it's not too bad, not too noticeable, and for that reason I did decide to make sure the seams do run more towards the back of the gown, so they're not anywhere in the front. It does look like I'm going to have one small job where I need to lift this front skirt panel. For some reason it appears to have gone a bit twisted, and it's dropping, the pattern is lower on this side than that side, so, and also I think looking at it I can see that that is affecting obviously where the hem is sitting, so yeah, so I'm going to have to unpick and just lift the waistline seam on the skirt just to bring that up, make it even, just to make sure that those stripes are running straight down the front of the dress and not twisting to one side. But other than that, I do think it looks really pretty. I think it has been worth the effort of working and persevering with this fabric. There's just something about the embroidered detail on this fabric that is just, it just screams Regency, and obviously that's the whole reason I kind of picked this fabric out when I saw it. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up by clicking the thumbs up icon down below. And if you would like to leave a comment, that really helps my channel out. Let me know which of the 3 gauzy gowns that I've made in previous videos, including this one, which one is your favourite. If you want to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube, that will mean you get notified when my next video goes out. But if you want to go one stage further, you can also subscribe to become a member on my website. I have 3 tiers to choose from, the lowest of which is completely free, but that will get you signed up to my newsletter to get all the updates from both my channel and my business, Blue Lady Couture. You will also get a discount off any purchases in either Etsy or my website stores, and you will also get a thank you in the credits at the end of my videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Now enjoy the reveal of my 3rd and final gauzy gown. if you like this video, you can leave it